What with what's his name? Philip Schofield.
Well, I'm in a broom cupboard.
I'm in space as usual.
As usual.
Space, yeah, as usual.
As usual. I try to not hang. Okay, so it says the meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. So I guess I don't have Facebook up right here, so I can't tell if anybody's like commenting. We need to probably have some idea of what people are saying, so I'll get that going. But in the meantime, I'll on autopilot kind of tell you about the Quickfix Digital Singles Club, which you can join, and all the info that you would need for that you would find on www.quickfixrecordings.com. And basically it's a cool singles club whereby you receive a new song which is unheard by anybody on the 1st of the month, and then you it eventually in a month's time is released to the world, but you have it exclusively, and we use the money from the singles club to promote the acts. So do join it, and we're just over the 50 mark somewhere in terms of how many subscribers there are, and that's the first 100 is only a tenner for the whole year. So go and have a look about that on www.quickfixrecordings.com, and I seem to have some kind of visual of oh, I'm going to turn that off so that you can't hear me talking about myself. Yeah, okay, cool, guys. I think I did that on autopilot.
We're definitely on.
Got away with it, right?
Yeah.
Wicked. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we're here for a debate, aren't we?
We are.
So the idea behind the debate came to me because obviously in February we told our loyal singles club members that they should that a bit of nostalgia was good for the soul, which is obviously a message that came from you, Neil, via Banksy Moon, the Sexy Wildies new single. Go out and stream it. And obviously then in March along came Ben with his song Saturn, I should say, The State We're In. And then obviously in your explanation of the song, obviously it's quite apparent in the lyrics anyway, but in your explanation of the song, you said that nostalgia was largely responsible for the horrible state of the world that we're in now. And so I thought, wow, well, aren't we just sending our audience mixed signals at the moment, and we should like thrash this out and find out for once and for all what the actual answer is. And then obviously if we manage to nail this, then obviously we can change culture moving forward for the better. And our contribution to society will be more than just two awesome songs. So I looked up a video for kids on how to debate earlier, as I was just telling you guys, and it said that you have a structure to these things. So I'm going to try from memory to remember what 5-year-olds probably can do really easily, which basically one of you puts forward your kind of initial argument. I can't remember what these things are called, and then the other like has their retort, which isn't called a retort, it's called something else as well. So far I'm doing a great job of this, but I figured as you were the one with the strong argument about nostalgia and what it's done, etc., Ben, I thought the most interesting place would be to start with where you think it's led us and why you think these things.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So I haven't got a speech prepared for this, but I think so. What the tune is kind of about is if you listen to kind of the words, it kind of is about going back to an era and a time that we all felt comfortable and safe and things were just better and all that kind of stuff, and feeling very kind of
would deliver your loaf coming up the cobbled street,
that sort of thing. You know, this the idea of being able to like leave your door open, this unlocked and all this kind of thing. The idea of kind of street parties with Union Jacks, all that used to happen apparently like every other day in every street in Britain, all that kind of thing, and how
they still do in Bath. Well, not lately, but like, you know, not for the last year, but all the time previous. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just this whole idea that it was just really, really lovely then. And I think it's one of those things that like, where the song sort of goes though, is this idea that kind of like, a lot of the stuff that people are nostalgic for are either times that A, never actually happened in the first place, or B, happened before the people that are nostalgic for them would ever be conscious of, right? So a good example of this, I think, is in, I think if you think of the two most sort of potent political kind of slogans of recent times, I would argue, and I don't like what these things represented, but I'm just saying in terms of their relative objective success and potency, it's probably "Make America Great Again" and "Take Back Control." Now, the both of those things, whenever you ask anybody, and you've seen so many like vox pops by sort of like liberal podcasts and stuff saying, well, what do you mean? When was America great again? And what do you mean by take back control and all this kind of stuff? A lot of people refer to, like, especially sort of over in this country in the whole hellscape of the Brexit debate we've had, a lot of people sort of, what you would tend to find was that whenever there was a really boring discussion about like trade tariff quotas and all this kind of stuff, I know about if we're outside of the orbit of the European single market, I'm already sounding boring, but basically like that'll result in massive problems with trade, and it'll mean there'll be food shortages and all that kind of stuff. The first thing people would tend to say would be, oh, don't be ridiculous, no, there won't be. Well, then what would very quickly come after that would be, well, you know, it's fine. We survived before now, didn't we? We survived in the 50s before we had all this. And then it turns into, and you know what, we survived World War II, didn't we? And the people usually saying we survived World War II are usually like in their 60s
Yeah,
or
it was
70s,
their parents
right?
that actually
And
survived.
so it's basically like, okay, so you were born in what, 1947? So it's kind of like, well, I'm not a historian, but even I know that the war kind of ended in 1945. So please tell me more about your very vivid experiences of a period when you were -2 years old. So it's this kind of idea of like, people have become nostalgic for an era and a time that they never experienced, or probably never actually happened, because nobody can ever quantify what again and back actually means.
It's also collective consciousness as well, isn't it? Like this kind of, you hear a story enough times, it suddenly becomes like the truth in some way, like all the reported history.
It's kind of like a foundation myth, right? So if post-war Britain was a new country, like that would be kind of the foundation myth, but it isn't. It has become a different era or whatever, but it's kind of like it's a different sort of thing. So the reason I think it's kind of it's that kind of feeling has very much been sort of exploited. It's been exploited over centuries, well, not necessarily centuries, but over decades by extreme political movements on, you know, both ends of the spectrum, but especially most obviously on the far right, because everything is like, why don't we just go back to what we had? Why don't we protect our culture, all that kind of thing? And what that always means is when people like me could essentially do whatever the hell we liked without any consequences, right? White men, usually, generally speaking. Now that has been very much exploited by political movements to get us, I think, into the kind of the mess we're in, because if you think of those two slogans, the key phrases are again and back.
Can you keep on brand, please, and like remember why we're here? It's the state
we're in.
Yeah.
Sorry, moderator. Must use the title of the song at all times. That's one of the moderations. But it's kind of like the reason why we are in the state we're in. I think is because a number of people have exploited that quite natural kind of human you know, that quite human longing for a nicer, simpler, better time, that quite human attachment to kind of nostalgia, to create quite a poisonous political atmosphere and quite a toxic environment that we're all kind of in right now, because it's always about going back to something, and it's like and it sounds so easy to go back to something when actually what you're doing is doing something that's quite destructive. So I think nostalgia is a very understandable and a thing that a lot of people enjoy, and I enjoy to some extent, but I think it has been co-opted to really quite poisonous effect by political movements that has brought us to, if you will, the state we're in. So that's my opening speech.
Nicely wrapped.
Succinct.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not supposed to butt in technically, but I'm playing this quite informally, like, so yeah. But okay, cool.
Yeah, no.
That seems like a reasonable argument. We all know that like a lot of things are co-opted, even progressive movements are co-opted for, you know, for nefarious ends. So yeah, it's very believable that nostalgia would also be part of that thing, and also that people maybe also when they're remembering some time from when they're really young, maybe it was their parents that were kind of like aware of whatever kind of awful things were going on, and actually they were just young enough to just be blissfully enjoying their lives. I know that when I was a certain age, I was not anywhere near as politically aware as I am now, and I would imagine, I don't know if my parents were, and also in terms of the information that we have, it's radically changed in terms of how well informed you can be now very easily, like with, or ill-informed you can be very easily with just as much tapping or whatever. So yeah, so that's, it all seems like fairly reasonable argument. So Neil, obviously your argument was a lot more based in, I feel, getting away from some of the negativity on dwelling on just all that long, all that chat that we just had, through the experience of being stuck in it for quite a long time, and using the things that you loved from your youth as a doorway to nostalgia. Would you discuss? That was my impression, so would you discuss?
That's right, yeah. And I think I congratulate my opponent on a very eloquent and accurate appraisal there. Difficult to kind of disagree with any of that. And I think what it throws out really is that maybe nostalgia is not quite as one-dimensional as it may appear. There's very much a different nostalgia in the what we're getting at on our song, Banksy Moon by the Sexy Wild East. In so much as
you've already won. You've already won.
This was easy, wasn't it? Yes, the idea that we're going with is that nostalgia, a bit of nostalgia is good for the soul. The line before that, if I can remember the lyrics I wrote within the last few months, bang some tunes on, have a little sing song. The premise being that, you know, this world is pretty fucked up at the moment, primarily because of a lot of what Ben referred to there. If you're talking about Britain, particularly America, and really most countries in the world at the moment, this harking back to a supposed better time is merely, for a lot of people, a kind of a front or an excuse, or just a reference point to, or an excuse to get their current point across. So my argument, being that a bit of nostalgia is good for the soul, is that you can switch off from all that shit. You know, put some records on, have a drink, have a sing song, particularly at the moment. I'm not quite sure what it's like in Britain at the moment, but in Hungary, the pubs haven't been open since November. You can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. It's pretty shit. The things that have been taking the edge off this pretty depressing time at the moment have been, even though it's quite basic, but sitting around with my missus, getting pissed, sticking some music on, having a laugh, talking shit, you know, rather than focusing on all the horrors that are going on. So I think from that point of view, switching off and getting away from the obvious is one thing, but the connection here with the nostalgia, I suppose, is that being of a certain age, you know, and anyone really, I guess, well, anybody above 20 has, you know, there's music, there's bands, there's TV programs, films, whatever, that stir up happy memories. You know, nostalgia, I think if you're politicizing nostalgia, then that's pretty wank as a rule. If, you know, the reference.
Why don't we hear that in more political debates? I don't know why we don't hear that word.
Wank on Question Time, do you? Question wank.
Hey, that would be a good title for it. It would like tell you.
Time.
That'd warn you at least, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. But in the, you know, in the record, where I mentioned some of the bands that I got into as a kid that excited me about music, that got me wanting to be in a band that I still love, you know. So you know, it references Happy Mondays, Primal Scream, Carter, bands from like the early 90s.
Ben's
you know,
Ben's press release has Teenage Fan Club.
Perfect,
and,
yeah, exactly.
You know, whoever as well. So I'm sure you can relate to that.
We're roughly the same age then, but when I started going to gigs, you know, these are the bands that I still bore the arse off anyone who wants to listen about, you know, about the genius of seeing these bands for the first time or seeing any bands for the first time. And I think, like, with the sort of Spotify playlist going on in the background with a mixture of old and new, there are certain bands, certain songs when they come on, and it's brilliant. And it you know, there's a warm feeling that comes back to you of a not necessarily a happier time or a happier world, but certain
gives you energy
things that you know, really give you a nice warm feeling, and that nostalgic feeling adds to that switching off from the horrors of the world, I think. So really, if we've probably stumbled across this quite quickly, but I think we're possibly talking about two different types of nostalgia. So maybe we shouldn't be debating whether nostalgia is good or bad, but maybe we should be encouraging people to focus on good nostalgia and not bad nostalgia, because none of you fuckers won the war, as Ben rightly says, but you did all listen to Nirvana, and you did all listen to Oasis, and you did all listen to the Spice Girls or whatever, and that's the good nostalgia, the Spice Girls.
Yeah, that's Spice. We got to all dig out the Spice Girls. No, it's true, because I mean, I've been sitting around watching like a load of old films that like Grace hasn't seen, and I'd be like, I'm just like enjoying it from a totally different perspective, like from what she'll often enjoy them, sometimes not so much, but like, you know, and I'm just in this other world. It's almost like I've been like, I can see a bit of like the filmmaking and everything, and I'm looking at it a little bit analytically, but primarily I'm just a teenager again, or 8 again, or whatever age I was when I saw the thing. Do you know what I mean? And
does it annoy you if she doesn't love them like you do?
I understand that we can't all like all the same things, but there's certain ones where I'll be like, no, really, you weren't blown away by that, really? Like, do you know what I mean? It's more like, so I understand that it's not all going to be, and I grew up on like a lot of like boyish action flicks, which means that she hasn't seen a lot of stuff, but also like they're not all going to hit. Do you know what I mean? Some of them she's going to like get something out of, and others she's going to be like, yeah, I can see why you would have liked this as a young boy. Do you know what I mean?
See, I get precious, you know. I find I get pissed off if like I'm playing a track from 1989 that about 7 people bought and that I think's incredible, and my missus or my mates are like, oh, this is shit, and it's like, you're wrong. And I'm not saying not wrong, but they'll have their own nostalgia, their own tracks.
Yeah. I mean, well, me and Grace have an age gap there as well. So her idea of like her nostalgia circle is
she's
like,
a lot younger than you, isn't she?
And like a dozen years or so. Do you know what I mean? So so she's got a whole different like kind of era that was her kind of the nostalgia of this, and I know what it was, but it wasn't like my boom period, like do you know what I mean? So but I mean, with bands, I guess there's a couple that she really like. She doesn't like Suede at all, and I can't convince her all, and it's really hard, and I can't convince most people, so that's not really such a shock, I guess. But like and who else does she
there's been studies into that, hasn't there? There's been like studies into kind of the fact that, and I've
like
read a bit about it.
Not
so much into how many people like Suede, though.
No, it's menswear, wasn't it?
Somebody to do. But it was about 14, right? So there's that whole thing about when you're 40, the music you love when you're 14, you'll love for the rest of your life. And it was like, I think there was something in the New York Times a year or two ago, but it came out again. There'd been an update to that particular research study, like earlier this year or possibly last year, because we were all feeling nostalgia for better times, and we were all thinking about what gives us comfort when things are crap. And it's like, it's music and it's stuff from your childhood and stuff like that, because you don't remember the hard stuff. You only remember the awesome films that we watched when we were kids, right? And like, for example, my little boy's 5. We've just been watching the original Star Wars trilogy, and we've got as far as Empire Strikes Back, and I cannot wait to show Return of the Jedi, because it's like, I remember when I was 5 or 6 coming out of the cinema watching Return of the Jedi, and like my life had just changed. It was incredible. But I think there is that thing about music where they say when you're 14, that's the period where your taste in music is set basically for the rest of your
That's
life. And
interesting.
you
I was
may come
mainly-
into certain things, and you may pick up different stuff that you like along the way, but what you liked when you were 14 is what you'll basically like for the rest of your life. And there is actual psychological study to sort of, and a lot of data to sort of prove that. And I'm exactly the same. It's a bit like, we've been having a discussion the other week, weren't we, Lee, about Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins. That was out when I was 14. I don't really like any other Smashing Pumpkins albums, but I still do really love that. And it's kind of a bit like, I like the one before that, but the stuff after that I don't really like that much. But it's kind of a bit like, but the stuff that has influenced this music I'm doing now is absolutely, if I think about it, not consciously at all, but it just ended up being really influenced by the stuff I liked. If I can really trace it back to 1993, 94, right? So Bob Mould, Sugar, Teenage Fan Club, Fugazi, these kind of bands that have like massively influenced kind of how I think about the world and I think about kind of music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of melodic but hard edged, a bit shouty in places, dead loud guitars, kind of really good songwriting, but quite kind of not super poppy, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So like if I trace back to what I liked in 1993, 92, 93, it's all there. It's still there.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
interesting.
It's kind of weird. Really.
I would say that I quite consciously, when I went, because I'd done like my teenage bands and stuff, and then I went off to Manchester, and then when I came back to Oxford, I very consciously went for the things that mainly got me interested in music in the first place. Like, as in live music, like not, so when I was 14, I was probably only listening to Prince, and that's probably it, which is still what happens most of the time, if I'm completely honest. But like then when I got into kind of bands and everything, it was all the, you know, the grunge and Britpop and all that kind of thing. And then when I kind of went to doing Smilex, it was like, well, let's go for like, I want, when I get on stage, because I knew there's like bands like At the Drive-In about and stuff, like where Cedric's just like all over the place. I was like, if you're going to even get on a stage, you need to like make sure you're bringing like something. So like I thought, oh well, I'll go for the energy, like the stuff that gets me physically most like energized. That's what will go into Smilex. So it'd be like Nirvana and, you know, like all the rock bands of the early 90s, basically, you know, and that was so I quite consciously kind of drew on. It was almost like I was being nostalgic before my time, so that I could play for longer, harder, if you know what I mean.
I think there's a dead interesting thing about that whole thing about you like stuff you like when you're 14. That I'm really conscious of the fact that that's because that's the age I was then, and it's not. I don't believe that necessarily means that music is objectively better than music now. It's just a case of that's what I remember. That's where my tastes were formed. And so I think you get a lot of people of, I'm going to throw this out there and say our age. Okay. You know, we'll leave that up to viewers' interpretation of what that age is. But, you know, we all came of age in music in the sort of early to mid 90s. So people can draw their own conclusions of that. You get a lot of rock dads on Facebook, like going, music's crap now compared to what it was in the 90s. Yeah. And I remember I saw that thing about a month ago when Phoebe Bridgers smashed a guitar up on Saturday Night Live. The amount of rock dads from the 90s on threads going, this is crap, you need to basically, it's not as good as PJ Harvey. Now I'm a huge PJ Harvey fan as well, but it's just interesting how many like middle-aged white men, their only frame of reference of a woman playing the guitar is PJ Harvey, because that's what they remember from the 90s, right? But there's an element of music's crap compared to what it was in my day. Well, that's what our parents said, and it's just a case of, it doesn't mean it's objectively better, more valuable, more worthy. It's just a case of that's what's influenced us, because that's the music that was out there when we came of age. And there's, as I say, data and psychological studies out there to prove that is the case. So it's and I think so that's, I think, another aspect of, nostalgia is great, but it can be sort of poisonous a little bit in that sort of sense as well.
I was quite lucky. My parents, sorry, I didn't want to cut you out of the conversation. I was just going to say my parents were quite receptive to, like, maybe because I was in a band and stuff, they like did their best to kind of, you know, like, at first my dad was definitely not into Rage Against the Machine, and by like a year later it was the only album he was listening to in the car and stuff. And like then like, and my mum was really into Radiohead and still would definitely like Radiohead and stuff like that. So I was quite lucky, I think, like with, but at the same time, my dad definitely said about Soundgarden that they were just like Zeppelin or whatever, like, oh, but it's just like Zeppelin.
Well, he's right. They were both fucking shit. Terrible bands. Thank you.
Which ones?
Who are we talking about?
Led Zeppelin, Soundgarden. Thank you.
Oh, just I'll give you the mic, but not because I want to.
No, listen, you're dead right. And it's interesting what you say there, Ben, about rock dads, criticizing Phoebe Bridgers and stuff like that. These rock dads are the same people who think that Britain was better in the 50s and 60s when they were kids, or even before then. These are the same white British twats who thought that Jeremy Corbyn was too dangerous, so voted for fucking Boris Johnson. These are the one-dimensional morons, aren't they? That will completely fit into the nostalgia that you're having to go at, and will think that they get the nostalgia that I'm getting at, but they won't, because they still listen to the same 4 records because they're not capable of embracing anything new at the same time. And they're the problem.
I do.
Twatty white.
I think the delivery method is slightly to blame.
The delivery method.
Oh, sorry. Like the way that we're exposed to music now. Like, obviously, this isn't such a argument in terms of the Phoebe Bridgers thing, because they've obviously just seen it, so they're judging it on the fact they've just seen it. But with a lot of like the judgment of like, oh, there's not as much good music about anymore, what they're largely seeing is this kind of like mainstream factory produced kind of stuff that has always been around, but that's all they're seeing because the alternative isn't in the mainstream as much, and you do have to go looking a bit if you want to keep up with like new music. I know that I have to make an active choice to go and look for new music to find it. Like, I don't, even if it's just what sites you're going and looking up and everything. And in the old days, I guess whilst we did have, that would be the equivalent of going and buying the NME or something. We did have like loads of music on telly, like loads of alternative music on telly. Whereas now there's like Jules Holland and like Glastonbury once a year or something. And, whereas there was like the Ozone and there were indie bands on like CD UK and like everything was like, it was like really in your face. Whereas nowadays, like you've got like loads of bands out there who are doing like guitar band music or alternative music with computers or whatever it might be, but it is like in the alternative side of things, and they're not really covered in the mainstream. They're like pushed onto this kind of fringe thing. Even it's like Six music, if you go to Six music you'll hear some, do you know what I mean? So I do think the delivery method is keeping like people our age and even older away from like the good, so they just see like and I'm not like particularly saying Cardi B's rubbish or whatever, like I'm chucking out a few like there's some like pop names like your Drakes and your something or whatever. I can imagine how someone who grew up on like a big indie band scene of like loads of working class people in getting a band together and somehow managing to take over the world, I can see how they'd be like a bit like, well, this is just like writers putting together stuff with producers, and then there's these people and they don't really sing live, and I can see how that would be embittering towards like kind of the idea of what's about out there. And I just don't think they're really seeing as much. Like you end up with someone like what's the ginger guy who's really popular?
Prince Harry.
Ed Sheeran.
Oh, that one.
I've heard Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran, that's it. Yeah, it's one of the two. I knew it was one of the two. Yeah, good one, by the way. Like Ed Sheeran.
Nice.
Like,
very quick. To keep up with the British news,
Like with Ed Sheeran, it's like he's classified as like a proper musician and stuff. Now he's like the proper example of like that's real music, that is, and that just shows what a kind of lack of that kind of stuff is in there. So so anyway, just that was a slight detour about like why I think people get a bit kind of stuck in the past, is because they're not really kept in with the new. And if you don't have kids who are into alternative music, you might not know. Do you know what I mean? And how kids even find alternative music, it's really hard, and they have to go and search now as well. So I do feel like, and it's the same with film, and it's the same with any alternative thinking, really.
I suppose though, in terms of the delivery mechanism, right? So the medium or whatever you want to call it, it's a bit like how often is Ed Sheeran on telly? I mean, because it's kind of a bit like, and the reason, and that's a genuine question.
He's
right?
omnipotent,
It's a
mate.
kind of,
He is everywhere all the time.
It's partly rhetorical, partly genuine, because I don't watch very much live TV, right? Because it's kind of a bit like, you know,
But you knew who I
anything
meant.
I choose to watch, it's kind of on I knew who you meant by Ed Sheeran. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
kind of a bit like,
you've managed to not
but
avoid
mostly
him.
through the internet, but mostly through how I consume any kind of audio-visual content, which is online, or is me choosing to watch a certain thing, right? Or me going to a certain news site, or being on social media or whatever. And I think that is increasingly how people who are younger than us, if I can phrase it like that, are getting their content anyway, right? They're not kind of like sitting down on a 7 o'clock on a Thursday night to watch Top of the Pops, and that's the only way they hear new music, because that's just not that generation's behavior of consuming any type of content, whether it's music or what, right? So it's kind of a bit like, it's an interesting one. I think it's a little bit like we were talking about when we did the Instagram live the other week. It's a bit like, ironically now, it's never been easier to make good music and put it out there, but it's never been harder to probably get noticed, because, especially right now, because there's no gigs, but also there's just how easy it is has meant there's so many people doing it, and the amount of platforms there are to find it means that you're just gonna get buried, right? You're gonna be absolutely buried unless you really, really work hard at your kind of ground game, which obviously this year has been impossible. So I don't know, man. I just kind of think like it's just different. It's not. I don't know if it's objectively better or worse. It's just different, and you have to kind of adapt to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But when the main ways that they are finding stuff is through a song being in a video game or a song being in a movie, that's pretty limited ways that like anything on an indie level can like ever get into that, you know. And I know all about like, you know, like the syncing, like the struggles of trying to get your stuff synced, and you know, and all that, and these kind of things. It's all like heavy business. Do you know what I mean? And it's very little to do with kind of like the kind of suddenly randomly something pops up for a little while, which happened when there was a lot of saturated coverage of music. You needed new stuff all the time, so there'd be new bands and new trends and new things like that. So there was a need for all that stuff. Now it's like controlled little doses, and also the main things that people are shoved in people. The other way that kids are finding stuff, for example, is like a song that's on a TikTok, but very rarely is that an unknown song, because the songs that are on TikTok are already owned by the companies that have made deals with TikTok, etc., etc. So the again, it's the delivery method. It's like slightly controlled, and it's not like there is the ability to find this stuff, but you have to know, right, I'm going to search indie bands. I'm going to search like you know, Leeds music scene, or Liverpool bands, or do you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And I'm going to search that kind of stuff, and that's how I'm going to find the stuff that's actually, and even the knowledge that there are people. I know it was a revelation to me as a teen that actually I could go and see some bands, and they were pretty good, and they were rocking, and like, and then I could meet them after, and maybe and then some of those ended up getting big, like Supergrass or whatever. You're like, whoa, are you kidding me? This is like, that's why I got in a band. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh wow, this is a crazy thing.
Absolutely the point, isn't it, Lee? That's absolutely the vibe of our song. You know, it's like, you mentioned Top of the Pops there, and you mentioned The Enemy earlier. That absolutely was, for me as a kid, as a teenager, as even almost a pre-teen, Top of the Pops was a fucking religion, wasn't it? You know, and it's like the bands are discovered on there, and you know, that was quite, well, very mainstream, wasn't it? A huge program. And I think it's not, you know, whether it's The Enemy or whatever, as alternative culture, John Peel was and stuff like that. Having a Top of the Pops, having even the chart show on a Saturday morning was massive, wasn't it? And it's not weird.
I used to love that.
It was great, wasn't it? But it's not weird for.
I used to love like the crazy space age graphics for the charts. That was
it was. Like, I mean, I think I discovered Happy Mondays on the chart show, you know, and then the week after they were on Top of the Pops with the Stone Roses, and it was, I mean, that particular episode of Top of the Pops is pivotal in my getting the musical horn. You know, it was like, what the fuck is this? This is amazing. You know, this is bands like I've never heard of, never seen anything like this, and I love them, and I still love them now. But it's not weird for people to grow up and drift away from alternative culture, I don't think. You know, certainly if you know, you grow up, you have kids, you get jobs, stuff like, you know, you're not going to go to gigs 7 nights a week. You're not going to be listening to the most maddest interesting music.
That's true.
But you probably do keep that with you all the time, like you were saying, Ben. You know, the bands you get into 14, 15, 16. God, yeah. And I reckon everybody does. And it's whether you stick with that and then explore further, or whether that's your limit and you become one of these boring rock dads who reckons that guitar music's dead and all this shit, you know. It's like, well, if you just look a little bit further, guitar music, of course it's not dead and it's never going to fucking die, is it? But
being honest, I see it on a rise at the moment. Like, I see so many good guitar bands out there at the moment, like over such a high standard that you think, wow, you know, if this was the 90s, they'd be famous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they just straight up be famous. Like, I can name like 5 indie bands that have, like, you know, 1,000 or 2,000 followers or on Instagram or something, that literally, if this was the 90s, they could be at least like feeder level, or like, do you know what I mean? Like something like that. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's off the Pops point is really interesting, because yes, there was this national institution that happened like it was Thursday, wasn't it? For all? Then it was Friday. It was on some other random night of the week. It moved to at some point, wasn't it? So on a Friday night, right? Sometimes on BBC 4, they always show all Top of the Pops, right? So we've sort of started kind of watching it, because obviously me and my wife kind of remember it. It's up to like 1990 now. So some of the stuff you're talking about, Neil, is on there. You're starting to see Primal Scream on there. You're starting to see Happy Mondays and with Kirsty McCall on it and stuff like that. And so it's dead interesting. And you watch that and you're like, God, music was awesome then. It was so great getting this on telly. But what is also interesting about that period, which I think is quite instructive if you do look back about this whole argument about nostalgia and it was better in my day. We watched 3 episodes kind of back to back, and we were like, whoa, such great music, and there's some pretty cheesy stuff. And it's interesting in 1990 how there's still a lot of power ballads around in 1990. It isn't necessarily, it's still a lot of super cheesy 80s hair metal in 1990. It's quite weird. I sort of forget it lasted that long. But what was interesting is, you talk about this period about how music was super awesome. You know what was #1 3 weeks running on the last 3 episodes we watched? You probably won't guess, but I'll tell you.
Was it?
Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini by Timmy Mallet, right? By Timmy Mallet. So I always kind of say that for every Happy Mondays, there was a Timmy Mallet. And I always kind of think back to the 70s. When you watch the stuff from like the 70s, you're like, for every David Bowie, there's Terry Wogan doing the floral dance. You know what I mean? It's all this kind of stuff. So there was terrible music then as well. It's just
what I'm asking now is, where in the mainstream do you find the David Bowie? Because I can find the Timmy Mallet, and I can find the cheesy dance track that was, you know, the Euro dance track that was, do you know what I mean? I can find all of those stuff still represented. I can still find your big you know, solo female star that has, you know, like this mega diva career. I can still find that character in the thing. All I can't find is the actual decent bands with some decent like tunes. They don't seem to be in the, if we made a Top of the Pops of what was going on right now, like, we'd have to draw something that isn't selling anywhere near as much just to have something in the show that we could watch. Do you know what I mean? So I think there is like there's still that imbalance. I remember that we all think of All Right as like Supergrass's cheesiest pop hit, right? Cheesiest pop hit. And most people probably remember it as a #1, but it was #2, and #1 was boom, 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 let me hear you say way-oh, way-oh.
which is a magnificent song. It's, you know, it's not cool, I suppose, but that is an absolute banger that still sounds great today. Now, I should point out, for all any pretense of cool and bands that I've referenced, I'm a sucker for some shit pop music. I love the boys, you know, who doesn't? Bloody love, like, and Scooter is outstanding, but that out here brothers, out there brothers, wherever they were, right tune, isn't it? You know, and there's nothing, you know, having great pop music alongside great rock music, if you like, alternative music, it's fantastic. It's the shit that gets in the way, isn't it? Like the power ballads and like the
I don't even mind the odd power ballad. Leave them alone, okay?
No, I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all.
I listened to the top 40 on Radio 1 when I was, you know, very young, kind of before I got into good bands, I suppose. and devoured anything, any music. And so I had no problem with the power ballads or 80s pop rock shite. But some of that stuff wasn't shite. And that's the thing. It's like finding that split. It's very easy, you know, people talk about guilty pleasures. And I'm not sure that is a fair description sometimes. It's like, you know, some of those shit power ballads that I just wrote were wonderful songs, weren't they, really?
They're great songs. Yeah,
mate,
that's true. Really true. Yeah,
Even those, you know, David Bowie songs were all right, weren't they?
He's
So
trying to get a
have
rise
we-
out.
have
It
we
feels like he's
solved
trying to get a
this?
rise out of me, but that's
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. I think it's me and Ben are gonna gang up on you now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It feels a bit unfair, being honest, but I can take it.
Can
I
just
was
ask
going to say,
very
actually,
quickly,
it's
sorry, mate.
interesting.
How?
Sorry, go for it.
How much though are you two buzzing here talking about the bands that you were into when you were a kid?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like
nostalgia.
Exactly.
Good for the soul,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
It is
Yeah,
good
I'm
for the
glad
soul.
we
You're right. I think
hopefully we've provided that
yeah.
for people when they watch. They'll be like, oh yeah, that's nice. But yeah, I think
so.
yeah, it's
Have we
interesting.
have we answered the question then? Have we
I
answered
think we
the
might
question,
have
Lee?
might have nailed it. I think the idea
Yeah.
is that don't let nostalgia take over and cloud your judgment, but definitely let it be an escape
Make you
from the
happy.
pressures of life, and allow yourself a little bit of like comfort zone and pleasure, and like, you know, and if that means tapping into something good from a time where you had a bit more energy and were a bit less overworked and overstressed and all that, then that's a good thing, right? That's like, it's, I think,
So it's the classic
music is vibrations, right? So like essentially, if the world is held together where every single bit of matter is not solid, it's all constantly vibrating all the time, and we just see it as kind of solid. So essentially everything's being held in place by vibrations. So the vibrations that you put around yourself are probably like really, really impactful and really important. So if that every so often means you need to kind of tap into that old battery that you have, that old battery pack that you've got stored away, then you know, then you know, that's probably handy. But when you start carting it around with you and you're like can't walk anywhere because you're trying to carry this battery pack around with you and like can't move into the future effectively, then you know, maybe it's become a hindrance. Would you say?
So I think what I'm trying to say is that we've come to the classic middle-aged conclusion. Everything in moderation is fine, is what we're saying.
It's right. It's right. And honesty with it. It's like, you know, we've been nostalgically honest here in that, you know, we used to like some great bands that have stuck with us and stuff. When people have been dishonestly nostalgic, like you were talking about at the beginning, Ben, you know, claiming that you know, this, it's like this bullshit. Oh, we got through the Second World War. We'll get through COVID. It's like, A, you didn't get through the Second World War, and B, lots of people didn't get through the Second World War.
Didn't, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's like,
which I find kind of offensive, really. That one.
Yeah, it's deeply offensive. You know, it's like you're getting, you know, Boris Johnson going, "Oh, we're smashing COVID now," and it's like, tell that to the people who've lost people because of your fucking ineptitude. You know, you haven't beaten COVID at all. We're getting through it slowly and difficultly, but you know, already twisting the truth on what's happened in some weird nostalgic bullshit way. You know, obviously, the further you take that nostalgia back, the more you can spin it, the more you can twist it. So if you lie about nostalgia, then you're a prick. But if you embrace nostalgia and the beauties of it and the good stuff, then that's the way to go with it, isn't it? So I think you are absolutely right. And I love your song, by the way, man. And I think that the sentiment is spot on. And I feel a little bit of not a fraud so much, but the songs that we've done on our first album about Britain, like I don't live there. I've not lived there for 4 years, but I'm still comfortably slating the fuckers in charge of it. And a lot of the live there, you know.
Well, really, you're not wrong. From your place of no experience of it whatsoever, you're somehow nailing it. So don't worry.
I still want to do, you know. But you know, you're absolutely right. And I think you know, the biggest fault of what's gone on in Britain in the last few years is this stupid nostalgia and people being lied to and then believing it, or then just lying to let themselves feel better, or lying to make an excuse to cover up the fact that they're just being racist or whatever. You know, it's like
absolutely.
The Second World War was fucking horrendous. don't pretend it's anything other than that. You know, it's the same. You know, it's
It's war.
Russia, that everything in Russia is like, they're you know, still heroic from the war where they fucking killed loads of their own, never mind anything else. And it's like, you can't pretend that. I mean, if your reference point is that far back anywhere for something being good, it's weird. You know, it's still,
that is weird.
Not about winning the World Cup in 60.
Well, you know, I don't think music's been the same since the 20s, if I can be completely honest. Like, I think the swing band era was probably like, it was way more sophisticated. There was like, you know, all those real musicians playing music. I think we've kind of really, it's quite basic, this thing that we do with the drums and the guitars, and do you know what I mean? And now we plink a plonk on some computer newfangled machine, like, what, do you know what I mean? Right? Good old, like, you know, you don't hear bassoon enough like these days, do you know what I mean? So
you don't.
I wish we make bassoon great again. That's what I want to
make bassoon great again.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Take bassoon back.
I mean, Stuart Lee's got that thing. Stuart Lee's got that thing where he's like, where he reduces it all back down to like the very beginnings of like Earth or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember back when we were just crawling out of the ocean, like.
Make baboons great again.
Make baboons.
Oh, both of them.
Yeah.
I would say Oscar Wilde, actually. Oscar Wilde probably nailed it when he said everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
very good.
Smash it in sometimes as well, because that's really good for the soul, particularly now. Get out your head occasionally.
Responsibly, of course.
Yeah, very
responsibly.
But whilst you're indoors, there's only so many places you can like bump into. It's quite good. No, it's funny. We had a Smilex watch party thing where everybody, basically the key thing was everybody getting together and drinking and chatting on the internet at each other, really. And the premise was there's a gig going on or whatever, so act like you would if there's a gig. So we were rude and we drank. Do you know what I mean? And you know, we woke up on the Sunday with righteous hangovers, like that. You felt like, yes, this is a good. I'm so glad I have this. This is a good feeling that I've missed. This is like, do you know what I mean? So it wasn't quite like after a gig, but it was like it had that tangible. And it was a little bit nostalgic. And just a little bit is good. Just good for the soul, isn't it? Just a little bit. You know?
Good for the soul.
Just a little bit is good for the soul. Yeah. I think that's the key line. A little bit is good for the soul, or a bit of it. Yeah. So it's a great. I love that hook in that song as well. It's just genius. I love that little bit of that song. It's so great. And it's but yeah, it's kind of that's exactly right. You know, it's everything in moderation, but it's also the idea that you use it positively to take you to a happier place amid all the crap that's going on around us, then obviously it's a good thing, and we're all kind of susceptible to it. Like, I read something again about this because I knew I'd read loads of stuff about this and I found it interesting, so I tried to find all the articles in preparation for this, for the grilling you were going to give us. And it was like there's one thing that I read about the what was the Time Hop app in Facebook, right? So it's basically now the thing. I think it was like originally, I think probably 2012. It was originally like it was one of those startups that made millions of dollars really, really quickly, and then Facebook bought them for like $1 billion or whatever, and integrated it into the Facebook thing. So now you basically get that, you know, we think you'd like this memory from 2 years ago thing, and obviously from that, Apple in the every sort of iPhone update, the past 5 or 6 iPhone updates, you get this notification in your Photos app now that says, we've created a memory for you, right? Which is like usually something you did 10 years ago to the day, and you look at it, and weirdly the algorithm has brought together a load of photos and videos that you might have shot on a particular day and put some schmaltzy Apple music over the top of it, and you can kind of play it or whatever. And it's usually kind of interesting because amid all the kind of like quite nice sweet photos, there's usually at least 1 or 2 that you took at the wrong angle, or mistakenly took a photo of your feet or something like that. But it's like if you eBay a lot of stuff, you tend to have like a lot of photos of all your
stuff that you've eBayed. So like it'll have this ding 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 ding,
Yeah.
and every like, look at this comic that you sold for $3.99.
Trainers, yeah.
What
Absolutely,
the hell?
like a pair of trainers.
Look at this weird like thing that you screenshotted quickly so you wouldn't forget it. Like, do you know, like just something I'll remember to, sign up for that thing or to watch that YouTube video. And it's like this. Oh, thanks for reminding me about that. Like,
Exactly. So it's like the big tech organizations are onto this, and they've made billions and billions of dollars out of appealing to people's sense of nostalgia, appealing to people's sense of kind of, oh, wouldn't it be nice to just go back to that simpler time? And this year, especially, we've been incredibly susceptible to that. Just because this year it's been like, remember that time when we could see people, and remember that time when we could get on a bus. I mean, it's that level.
Shake a hand.
In terms of
shake
somebody's hand, yeah.
I went to a different Spar supermarket earlier. It was incredible. Genuinely the highlight of the month. And I've had my birthday.
So the point with it is we're all really susceptible to this stuff because we have a human need to feel comfortable and feel, at home and stuff like that, and feel a sense of space and place in our lives and stuff like that. So like the big tech companies understand that and have invested probably billions of dollars into making us all feel a bit nostalgic occasionally, even if it is check out the stupid thing you did on Facebook a year ago. But that's a form of it, right? But so everybody knows that it's an inherent sort of human need that we all have. But so in that sense, it can be a nice thing, but because it's an inherent human need, it's very easily exploited for nefarious purposes as well.
And we should exploit this for our own various purposes, Lee, because if we just have that line, a bit of nostalgia is good for the soul, over and over again, you sell that to Apple or Google. I see a little photo stream from a year ago of you going, well, this lockdown's a bit shit, isn't it? But it'll pass. A bit of nostalgia is good for the soul. This is it. This is how we play at their own game.
This is the millions.
This is how we crack the algorithm. This is how we crack the algorithm. Right, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's amazing. I think we've kind of covered everything, and I've managed to unite you two, which was something I wanted to do. But I don't know how you've ever met. It was like it's completely mind-blowing to me that we didn't at some point manage to get like some conjunction of, I'm sure there must have been plans to that never happened at some point.
I mean, we may have done it. I mean, like when I started knocking around with you, Lee, and your band, I mean, it's pretty vague what was going on back then. It's entirely possible we went out for a few months, Can I just very quickly? I forgot. Finley from the Sexy Wild East has got COVID, so get well soon.
No.
Put that shit off.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
We've got to play a gig soon.
Ben, you might want to watch out because Tash got it before.
Right. Okay.
That's not funny.
I don't want this to become the thing
of the singles, the COVID.
The singles club, yeah, the COVID club, yeah.
Oh my goodness! Oh, geez, what have I started?
Yeah.
I wish the subscriptions were spreading as rapidly. But okay, right. Well, that's probably get well soon, Finley. That's awful.
Definitely.
Just have a good day. Dig into nostalgia. That for him is like what 3 years previous, isn't it?
I think, nostalgia for Finley is like the third Ed Sheeran album. I think.
I remember 2016.
Believe me, he doesn't.
Yeah.
You thought
that was a terrible year.
That was the worst. That was the worst year. No arguments from me. Right. Okay. Thanks, guys. Right. We'll wrap this up. This has been almost an hour. That's like counts as entertainment, doesn't it? In some places.
I think it does in this day and age. Yeah, that's a Netflix episode, isn't it? Yeah.
The sheer length of it means we should be able to log it somewhere as some form of content. I think. So
I think
awesome. Right. And we definitely solved all of the world's potential problems as well. So you're welcome, world. Yeah. And do join the Singles Club, www.quickfixrecordings.com. Go and follow Saturn and Sexy Wild East on social media, not just on Facebook. Go to the other ones as well. They've got Twitter and they've got Instagram. And go and stream the song. The Sexy Wild East Banksy Moon is out now, and you can just go and click on your phone and play it right now, like 10 times. and then we'll get like a penny almost or something. I think no, not that much, but and then go to and then like go to the Singles Club if you want to hear the Saturn song, or I guess if you're real stingy, you can just wait until it streams in how many days? About 15,
a week, isn't it?
14, yeah, 2 weeks, I think it is.
2 weeks.
Literally,
Sorry.
I think
Yeah,
it literally
should
comes
probably
out on
know
like the 31st or something. So literally on the 31st. So yeah, and then
Yeah.
it'll be on Bandcamp with exclusive remixes on the following Bandcamp Friday, won't it? Which is the first Friday of the month or whatever. So yeah.
And some live, exclusive live recordings as
Oh
well,
yeah, it's coming up as
including
well, isn't
a
it?
song. Yeah, so there's a obviously there'll be a live version of The State We're In on there, but there's also a live version of a couple of songs off the previous EP I did in last November, and also a live recording of a new song which nobody has ever heard yet, and I'm in the process of recording. So that is hopefully exciting for people as well.
Have you've heard
Exclusive
it, though, right?
to Quickfix. I've heard it. Yeah.
Thank
I've heard
you.
it. I've heard it. Yeah,
Oh, have you heard it as well?
yeah, it's
Have you
good.
got-
Yeah, we
got
had a chat
spine?
before you came on, Lee.
Let me play this. Look, before we debate, I just want to play this song.
Exactly right. See, don't be late. Don't be late next time.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
it.
yeah, I'm sorry. I like to be fashionably late. It's my thing. You know what I mean? So you gotta be a rock star in some ways, don't you?
Yeah.
You've got to like retain it somehow. The axle way is the only way. That and the stomach. I'm gonna get the stomach up to axle size, and then I'm gonna get some braids, and then I'm set. Right, wicked. Thanks, guys. Take care of yourselves.
Cheers.
And
Nice
and
one.
each
See you
other.
later. Good to see you, man.
Awesome. Are you